right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Ava. I'm the Assistant K Perpetua Coordinator. And welcome to our Young Wavemaker series. So before we start, I'd like to just introduce you to our collaborative, tell you a little bit more about the area in general, and just take a few minutes to celebrate the amazing K Perpetua area. So we work in the Cape Perpetua area, generally speaking, from Yachats to Florence. And the Cape Perpetua area encompasses Oregon's largest marine reserve, which is a fully protected marine protection area, and two neighboring MPAs, as well as a seabird protection area. We also work in the beautiful Suisla National Forest, as all of our programs are designed to showcase the interconnectedness of the land and the sea. We offer some really amazing programs that we really encourage you all to participate in. So we host a lot of citizen science opportunities like sea star monitoring and marine debris surveys, as well as bioblitzes such as our fungi bioblitzes and seabird colony monitoring. We also offer in the field learning opportunities like our tide pool tours in the summer, which is coming up, which I'm super excited about. And then in the fall, our annual Land Sea Symposium. But we couldn't do any of this without our amazing volunteers, such as our Marine Reserve ambassadors who table at Smelt Sands every weekend in the summer, and all of the amazing people who help out at the Land Sea Symposium. And we really hope to offer more community events in the near future. So there's tons of ways for everyone to be involved. Whatever your skills may be, we would definitely love to connect with you. Just shoot us an email and we'd be super happy to get you started. If you don't have time, or maybe you just want to rep the brand, we do have some really cool shirts. This is a really great way to support us. All of the money comes to us, which is really nice. And we also have a donate button on our website. And if none of these strike your fancy, maybe these will. We have new shirts because we have a new logo and a bunch of other new stuff coming out. So highly recommend checking out our bonfire and just keeping up with us on our socials, which are listed here. So aside from that, Connor is our last young wave maker for this month. But you can find Emily and Sequoia's both online on our YouTube playlist, as well as Connor's later after I get it uploaded. So that being said, I would love to welcome Connor to the stage. I could introduce him, but honestly, he's going to introduce him better than I could. So I'm going to stop sharing and let you take over.
Sounds good. I hope I can introduce myself well enough. All right, hi, I'm Connor Willeford. I am currently a Jellies and Live Food Aquarist 2. I got it right that time. Every single time I've had to say that, I've butchered it because it's just a really long job title and I'm trying to get used to it. But I'm a Jellies and Live Food Aquarist 2 at Wonders of Wildlife National Museum and Aquarium in Springfield, Missouri. And my presentation today is pretty much kind of a little self-indulgent, kind of like a life story of myself a little bit, but a lot of it kind of circles back to my time spent out in Oregon. Honestly, all of it, and I kind of hit on it like right at the very end of the presentation, but it's all very much interconnected to Oregon and the experiences I had there and all the people I met. Honestly, wouldn't have done any of the things I've had a chance to do without that place or things that are adjacent to that place. So there we go. I don't remember how to do this. Not use Zoom, I don't think, since we were in Oregon together, Ava. So
Yeah, I'm one of the people that Connor met in Oregon, or classmates again from the Aquarium Science program. So this is also a self-indulgent for me. I just get to learn more about you. It's
all
great.
right.
All right.
Can you see that? Is that working?
Yes, it's working great.
Sweet. Very cool. Away. All right. So, like I said, this is basically Iowa to Jellyfish and how Oregon helped me get there. About me, graduated high school in this place called Pleasant Hill, Iowa. If anybody ever asks, I just tell them I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, because most people at least know that that's a place that is in Iowa, and it's just a suburb that's right outside of Des Moines. Um, but while I was there, junior year, I kind of heard about, and I'll get into it a little bit more later, but this program that was at is actually a completely different school district that I was able to attend, kind of go there off campus of my home school, and travel there every day starting my junior year. It's Des Moines Central Campus, which is like right in the middle of downtown Des Moines. They had a marine science program, so I also attended there my junior and senior year. Before that, and honestly, kind of around the same time as that as well, I was a youth volunteer and guest services employee at the Blank Park Zoo in Des Moines, Iowa. Some of the places that I also attended, and I'll get more in depth on all of these. I attended College of the Florida Keys for 7 months. At the time I was there, it was actually called Florida Keys Community College. So trying to get used to calling them that as well. They had a whole kind of rebranding after I had left. After that, I was going back, sorry, jumped ahead a little bit, but I was getting my associates in science and marine environmental technology. And then after a little bit of my time there, an instructor there let me know that I could have also obtain a certificate in tropical ornamental mariculture once I kind of started figuring out what I wanted to be doing while I was out there. After my kind of brief little stint out there, I came back home for a bit, but I went through the processes of transferring over to Oregon Coast Community College and joining their Aquarium Science program, where I finally did obtain my associate's degree in Aquarium Science. After that, I went to the Marine Mammal Center in right outside of San Francisco, California. It's actually was living kind of right next to the Golden Gate Bridge in the national park that's on the northern side. It was literally right there and right by the bridge, so that was kind of cool. But I was a life sport and facilities intern there for around 3 months. After that, I went to the Maritime Aquarium at Norwalk in Norwalk, Connecticut, where I worked as a Jellies aquarist. And then about 9 or 10 months ago, I moved to Springfield, Missouri, whereas that is where I currently am as the Jellies and Live Food Aquarist too. So beginnings in Iowa, basically since I don't even know, since I was old enough to have my own thoughts, I was always obsessed with animals. I was doing the stereotypical watching Steve Irwin and Zaboomafoo, that type of stuff. The show, I think it was like, I forget what it was called, but there's like this little character named Stanley, and it was like all these animal shows. Always watching Animal Planet. I always knew that I wanted to do something with animals. I figured I'd be a zookeeper for a while there. I thought I was going to work with rhinos for some reason. Those were kind of my favorites for a very long time. I began volunteering basically as soon as I could at the Blank Park Zoo. It's around 2014, I think it was the summer in between 7th and 8th grade for me. Starting out, I initially assisted the small mammal team in the cleanup crew. So small mammal team was basically the petting zoo area with the goats and the llamas. There's some pigs and a miniature donkey. And then also it was kind of the cool times is when I got to go help. The team also worked with the wallabies that were in the Australian area. And then the cleanup crew is basically, as it is stated there, I would come in pretty well before opening and just walk around and pick up garbage. It wasn't super glamorous, but I actually kind of weirdly enjoyed it because I got to just walk around the zoo while all the animals were waking up. Place was like dead quiet, and I got all of it kind of to myself and what other kids were volunteering that morning. But I did that for a decent amount of time. I think up until around 2017, 2018, I was volunteering almost as close as you could get to full time as a kid. every summer though, and as I volunteered some more, kind of get some more privileges, if you could call them that. And I was able to move up to working with the large mammal, the avian, reptile, aquatics, and education teams with animal care. A lot of it was kind of some basic stuff, just kind of cleaning up around their enclosures and their holding spaces. There was a lot of diet prep for the avian, reptile, and aquatics teams with fish and all the different reptile diets and salads and stuff. And then one specific thing is I kind of noticed I enjoyed being with the aquatics team a little bit more than the others. I just thought it was pretty cool. A lot of my time with the aquatics team was just spent, as you can see in that picture, with the harbor seals and the sea lions. Every Tuesday we would drain that pool that's kind of in the background there, scrub it all out. I spent a lot of time cleaning seal and sea lion mucus off of walls and stuff, but did not deter me. I actually was having a pretty good time with all of it. But then kind of towards the end of me volunteering, I also got hired as a guest services employee. In 2017, I kind of did both of them simultaneously until I kind of realized it was a little bit too much. So I kind of stopped doing the volunteering and kind of just kind of went over to focusing on just doing my actual paying job. Probably like 90% of the time I was working at the draft feeding attraction that you can see in that photo. So they're taking money, handing out lettuce, or just kind of enforcing the rules, making sure the guests weren't touching the giraffes or anything crazy like that, or giving them stuff they shouldn't. But in between that, there was a lot of downtime where I got to do what is in that photo and just kind of feed the giraffes and hang out with them. And I kind of got a soft spot for giraffes that I still have to this day. And then I also worked admissions for special events that were like after hours and stuff like that. Every now and then I would help run cash registers, but most of my time was thankfully working at the draft feeding attraction. So my junior year, it kind of came around to the point where sort of had to start kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. My mom actually kind of randomly told me about, I don't even remember how she found out about it. She works in downtown Des Moines, so she always kind of knows what's going on down there, but she actually kind of told me about, hey, there's this marine biology, marine science program at Des Moines Central Campus. I didn't even know what Des Moines Central Campus was or how it worked or anything. It was a completely new concept to me to have this building that was like off-site, even for the school district it was a part of, the Des Moines Public School District. It was just kind of a place where kids could go to kind of take college credit courses that were specialized. I had one of my best friends took like environmental sciences there. I know there's like a culinary school across the hall from us. There's fashion school there that would have a fashion show every year. It was one of the coolest places I've ever been. But junior year, the way the program is set up is it's actually two classes that kind of share the lab. They each have a half of this gigantic lab that all these photos aren't even really going to do it justice, just how many tanks and kind of really kind of crazy animals that high schoolers were working with. But junior year, I took Aquarium Science, which kind of had a lot of more focus on a lot of the animal care and kind of aquaculture, raising larval fish or growing live foods. And then senior year, I took marine biology, which was basically as described. We still took care of a lot of animals, is kind of a lot more unique animals. And there's also just kind of a lot more focus on some of the texts and actually learning the marine biology and stuff like that, and that side of it, a lot of like field research and studies and stuff like that. But in this photo, like in the bottom left there, that's actually not there anymore, but that they moved that tank last time I was visiting there. I visit every time I'm back home in Des Moines. I try to go say hi to them there at Central. That was a bamboo shark tank. And then the top middle there is actually the first time I had ever worked with jellies. I got my start there. They had that smaller moon jelly system right there. And then on the other side is actually kind of a larger stretch chrysal. A chrysal is a jellyfish tank. It's a German word. I think it was because the dude who invented it was named Kreisel or something like that. But basically it means that there's constant flow in the tank that directs the jellies kind of in a circular motion. And there's no edges in the tank either because jellies do not like corners. But yeah, we had two jelly systems there. We grow them up through their full life cycle, which I can kind of get into later on. Jellies have a unique life cycle. We grow their live food there and everything. It was really cool, but admittedly at this time, jellies weren't really my focus. I knew about their life cycle and stuff. I knew that we at least had like a weird one that I learned while I was taking these classes at this program. And I knew that they ate live food. They ate brine shrimp that we fed out to them that were also then in turn the brine shrimp was fed like live algae that we grew. But beyond that, it was actually kind of a pretty thoughtless thing for me. I'd just go kind of dump the brine shrimp in there and not think much of it. And I'd go look at the sharks and all the clownfish we were breeding, which is what that bottom right kind of rack there is. That was a lot of clownfish and other smaller fish. But yeah. So these are photos from, this is the Aquarium Science kind of side of the lab. There's anything, those top right are coral troughs. The bottom of that is like just right next to that row of tanks there. Those are kind of the coral trees that the Coral Restoration Foundation uses. We kind of took their design. They use those actually out in the ocean to help propagate corals. They work pretty well for us there. Kind of down the way from those coral trees there in that bottom right photo is our seahorse tank. And yeah, it's just a lot of reef fish on that side of the lab. These are two of my buddies. Caleb's there on the left and Seth is there on the right. We met junior year, and that's the top photo there is junior year, bottom photo there is our senior year. Caleb and I were taking marine biology and Seth was a lab manager, which was kind of a extra thing you could do if you're really serious about kind of going into the field. Basically kind of volunteered your time to take care of the animals. I did not do that personally, but it looked like a pretty sweet gig for the students that did do that. And we're just like holding we thought it was a neat thing, but it's literally just a squeegee taped to a Swiffer pole that we use to squeegee that kind of, you can kind of see in the background, the countertop that we couldn't reach. I don't know, you do really stupid things when you're in high school. This is just some more photos of what I was doing my junior year. That top left photo there is actually our broodstock room. So in each one of those tanks, there was a pair of clownfish. More often than not, they had a little clutch of eggs in there, and we would raise the larval clownfish. We had so many larval clownfish of all the different hobbyist designer types too. Had like tomato clownfish, mocha clownfish. It's actually kind of neat. There was an alumni who was the first one to successfully breed this crazy type of clownfish called lightning maroon. And at least at the time, it was like a super expensive, sought after designer clownfish. I think the price has gone down a little bit because a lot of people are breeding them now, but he gave us like 8 pairs of those and really trusted all of us high schoolers with that. And I know they're having a lot of success there right now. Last I heard with, they've had a lot of different generations of lightning maroons that the high schoolers have been taking care of. So I thought that was really awesome. They're very pretty clownfish. The top middle photo there that was actually supposed to be like an old iguana exhibit. I think there was an iguana in there at one point. That was before my time, but we turned it had like this closing door right there. It was our kind of quarantine hospital space. We kind of did what we could. It's this closed off little glass box that went away by my senior year. That was no longer there. Top right there is just me prepping some of our calcium buffer. all of our coral tanks to give them the proper calcium, magnesium, all the special chemical additions that they need. We use B-ionic, which is a 2-part calcium buffer. I actually have never used that since then. Usually places just have a calcium reactor everywhere I've been now, but it was a pretty neat experience to be able to mix the 2 parts of it together and kind of make it yourself, quote unquote. All that PPE in the lab coat was absolutely unnecessary. I had to take that photo for a project, but usually we just wear gloves. Bottom left there, that was one of our coral troughs. That was actually our lab that we did. That was my first time fragging a coral. So just kind of taking a piece of a coral off of a larger coral, and then we would super glue it to this little kind of plug, and then put it on that egg crate that you can see there, and then it would grow a whole new coral off of that frag. We all got a chance to do that, and then the people who were taking care of those systems also were kind of doing that all the time. And then those last 2 remaining photos there on the bottom are two large coral exhibits. I think they look a little bit different now. They've kind of been going through some changes, but those were windows on the other side of the tanks there that opened out into like the school hallway there. It was kind of like a display at like at a public aquarium where the other students were walking by and they could see into our lab and see what we were taking care of. So part of the really cool thing is every spring break, both classes, marine biology and aquarium science, they take spring break trips. So as soon as I caught wind that that was a thing, I'd never really done anything like that before. And by this point, I kind of started taking these classes just because I thought it sounded like a cool thing to kind of not take school classes at my home school and go kind of mess around with fish for a class for a decent chunk of my day. And it was animal stuff, so I was automatically kind of into it. Before that, I probably should have prefaced this early. I had not much experience with fish or aquatic animals or anything. I had had betta fish and some freshwater fish before. It was all kind of a new concept to me. So I kind of just joined because it sounded fun. And, I've been trapped ever since. But yeah, I'd never really kind of taken a school trip before. I was involved in track and field. They always fell during the track and field season, but these ones lined up just right. So I did a lot of fundraising, raised up money to be able to attend. So junior year, spring break trip, we went to Washington and Oregon. That is actually down in the bottom right there. That is Newport, Oregon. Back then, I had absolutely zero clue that I would end up moving and living there. So that's kind of a funny photo. We even went and visited that bottom middle photo there is the back of house, the top of the big shark tank at the aquarium that's there in Newport, Oregon Coast Aquarium. No idea I would be living next to that in a few years. And we actually also visited Oregon Coast Community College's Aquarium Science program. It was kind of creepy looking back. Well, not creepy, but it's just kind of weird in hindsight looking back. I had all these photos from when I was in high school of the lab that I would be working in just a few years later, and I had zero clue I would be attending there at all. Yeah, we did a lot of sightseeing. We visited a lot of facilities. Top middle there is Seattle Aquarium's jelly donut tank that they have. Is one of the craziest jelly tanks I've ever seen. Part of our time there, that far left photo, sorry, I'm kind of jumping around, but that was taken in the San Juan Islands. We went and stayed at Friday Harbor Labs up in Washington for a decent amount of time. It was a couple of days that we spent there, and that was one of my favorite parts of the trip, is just kind of up on this island at this marine lab. They took us out on that boat, and we would we'd pull stuff up out of the water and kind of sift through it. It was mostly a lot of shrimp and prawns and crabs, but it was still a super cool experience for us. We did a lot of like nighttime stuff out on the dock, seeing what kind of animals we could see with our red flashlights and all that fun stuff. And we did a lot of nature sightseeing, like you can see in the top right there. I believe that's Devil's Churn in Oregon. But yeah, that was a really cool trip, and I just was kind of along for the ride to visit all these places. We had more stops than I can even imagine. I was exhausted on every trip that we went on. We also took a trip to Chicago every fall in the Aquarium Science or the Marine Science program, and we'd go visit Shed Aquarium. It was just kind of a 2-day trip, and then right before the end of the year, kind of in the summertime, we would take a trip to Omaha and visit the Omaha Zoo and Aquarium, just kind of a day trip over there, since it was like a 2-hour drive. So I attended every single one of those, and I don't regret a single thing. It was very cool experiences. So my senior year, we went to Florida and Georgia. We actually kind of went all the way down. I think we like landed in Orlando, but we drove our charter bus all the way down to Key West, Florida, all the way down the southernmost point of the United States. We made our way up the Keys, made our way up to Florida, kind of bounced back and forth across the state multiple times, visiting a gajillion different facilities, and then drove all the way up into Georgia. We did briefly go into another state that was bordering. I forget which one though, and I don't remember which side we're on, but we kind of like were in a national park and we kind of wandered over the state line. That was kind of funny. So we technically visited 3 states for that, but definitely biggest highlight of that was probably the top right photo and then the top left photo. Top left photo, we ended in Georgia and Atlanta. We visited the Georgia Aquarium. We got a back house tour. And it was just insane. This was kind of before they had the whole top of their giant whale shark exhibit open to the public. That's what that photo is right there. We kind of got a private tour to go out onto the deck there. We got to watch them feed the whale sharks and kind of just be like kind of a couple feet away from them, like 5 or 6 feet away from them. It was insane. And obviously that tank is just ginormous. 10 out of 10 would recommend going and visiting. And then we visited that top right there is the Dry Tortugas. It's this random kind of old fort that's on an island that's off of Key West. We took a boat all the way out there. We did some snorkeling off the Dry Tortugas there. I got very sunburnt. It hurt a lot, and that was very cool too. I've never seen such like turquoise green water before. It was gorgeous. Bottom left there, I believe that was on the eastern coast of Florida, near one of the aquariums we visited. And I believe that's what that photo above it is as well. Bottom middle and bottom right. Bottom middle is actually taken at the Moat Marine Lab facility that is in Marathon, Florida, down in the Keys. Their biggest thing there is coral propagation. That's just kind of another funny thing there too, is we were down in the Keys. We actually visited this other school that I would attend as well. They kind of wowed me there. We visited College of the Florida Keys, kind of got a tour of their facility there. And then we toured that Moat facility, which I would also kind of be in contact with them about interning and stuff like that. So just more kind of fun stuff. And then I just included that bottom right one because it was just, once again, me taking photos of pretty jellies, not realizing I would turn into a jelly person in the future. But that was at Moat Marine Labs aquarium that's up in Sarasota, Florida. So it's a public aquarium, but they also do a ton of lab research there as well. It was a super cool place. I have a handful of friends actually that have interned there, and they really liked it. So yeah, these really awesome trips that I got to take, got to meet all kinds of people, kind of some big names, and just kind of going off of what kind of the whole topic of my PowerPoint is and everything, of kind of starting in Iowa, the most random place in the world, which I guess I didn't address it earlier either, but yeah, it is weird that the marine science program is in the middle of Iowa. Don't really know why, but I'm glad it was there. But there was a former Iowa State, he was just a general biology student that was working at Georgia Aquarium when we went and visited, and he was working with the whale sharks. So that's just kind of another random start. There's so many different avenues you can take to get into the aquarium industry. He wasn't even specifically marine biology. He was in landlocked Iowa taking biology, and he kind of squeaked his way in, and he kind of seemed like he didn't really understand how he got there either. But yeah, he was working with whale sharks. It was one of the craziest things. So, like I said, I visited, that's the campus there, that big bottom photo. I visited College of the Florida Keys. Actually, it was, I can't remember if it was the week before my spring break trip down there or the week after. My mom, I think it was the week after. My mom and I flew in so that sorry, I'm trying to remember. My mom and I flew in so that I could take a college visit there. So I was actually there 2 weeks in a row. It was a little obnoxious, but my mom really wanted to see it, and I wanted to kind of go approach them in more of a kind of like, hey, I want to attend here type of scenario, more than just kind of my school trip going through. So they kind of wowed me there. The place is gorgeous. I will never deny that. Living in Key West was definitely an interesting experience. It was crazy living on an island for sure. Like I said, I kind of had my associate's degree and a certificate, so it's kind of like a smaller version of majoring and minoring. It's where I got scuba certified, which is that's me and my roommate in that diving photo there. And kind of got involved with their aquaculturing lab there. They also had a lot of clownfish propagation and everything there, but their lab there actually got hit by the hurricane. I forget which hurricane it was. It absolutely demolished their lab though. So it was in the process of getting completely rebuilt. So when I was there, it was kind of just taking care of a lot of little 20-gallon tanks with these clownfish. And then they actually had some of those lightning maroon clownfish I talked about though. So that was kind of fun to see those as well. But when I was down there, I kind of realized, it's when I figured out and it kind of clicked, like I wanted to work more in the public aquarium when taking care of animals type of side to the whole education path. And this school focused more on a lot of recreational diving, dive charters, and dive research, which was neat and everything, but I kind of realized it maybe wasn't for me. I don't know if it was just because I liked air conditioning or what. But I kind of realized, it wasn't for me. And I left at the beginning of my second semester there. During that, I went back home to Iowa and took some like local community college general ed classes because I remembered that there was this place we visited and this place that honestly Central Campus kind of plugged more than anywhere else. It was Oregon Coast Community College's Aquarium Science program. So I applied there basically as soon as I got home, and took all the gen eds that I could to kind of get them out of the way so I wouldn't have to take them in Oregon. I got accepted into the program, and so did, you can see bottom row far left there, my buddy Caleb got accepted as well during the same year as me. He was one of the friends that was in the photos with me at Central Campus. And then the third friend there, Seth, had actually already been out there for a year. So he was on his second year when we got out there. And then there was a fourth friend that we had in the program named Christian, who was also out there. So it was kind of a little reunion with four of the Iowans going out there. It was pretty nice to have guys that I was already really good friends with. We all ended up being roommates and living together in two different dorms there. But yeah, that photo there on the right, that was my kind of graduating class, quote unquote. There's, at least when I was there, I know it's different now. It was either you did the 2-year associate's degree or you could do a 1-year certificate degree. Some of those students there were just 1-year certificate. It was kind of like 60-40 certificate and 2-year degree. I know now they offer a 4-year bachelor's degree, partnered with another college out there in Oregon, which is very cool for the students that are coming in. So my first year, 2019 to 2020, it was basically just getting introduced to the lab and everything and kind of just doing whatever gen eds I had left and taking intro to aquarium science. That top left picture there is from our kind of end of the year Aquarist Olympics, where we just kind of competed in a bunch of like fun little tasks. My team won gold, just saying. And yeah, just humble brag there. But all these photos here is where I was kind of spending the majority of my time. That top middle photo there was the first animal I took care of there. It was just a single horn shark. That top right photo it was in that leftmost cylinder exhibit there. And that was the sole thing I kind of took care of. That was the only system assignment I kind of started out with. That quickly and still is one of my, I think that is one of my probably favorite animals besides jellies, of course. I had never worked with a horn shark before. I just worked with, bamboos and coral cat sharks, epaulet sharks, other smaller sharks, but there's just something about that little horn shark. I had a great time with them. I helped one of my fellow Iowans, Christian. He had also been out there for a year, so he was a year ahead of me, but working on a training project. We partnered up on it, and I helped him stretcher train the horn shark to kind of get targeted onto a stretcher so we could pull him out of the water and get easy physicals and weights on him without having to like catch him with a net or anything that could be potentially stressful for him. The bottom left photo is just kind of the other side of those two systems and just some of the other systems that were on that side of the lab. Then the last two photos, the bottom middle, bottom right, that was our intro to aquarium science tanks. So believe it or not, up until this point, I had never set up a fish tank from scratch, let alone a saltwater fish tank. So that was a completely new concept to me. Everybody got their little tanks there, had to set up filtration, get it cycled, add the decorations, and then, excuse me, majority of us got a pair of clownfish that we had. We had a whole bunch of clownfish there. We got two clownfish, and then we basically just had to go through the whole process of setting the tank up and then keeping the clownfish alive for the term. And feeding them and everything. So that was the first time I had ever done anything like that. And I had no idea what I was doing. I did a lot of kind of glancing over at some of the other people to see what they were doing to kind of figure it out. But eventually it clicked, and my partner and I were able to get our clownfish in, and my lab partner that I had for that. And I liked how our little tank turned out. It was cool looking. So as you probably noticed, it ended in 2020, that fun year where we went home for spring break and we're told spring break got extended by a week and then another week. And then we were told, hey, there's a pandemic happening. You can't come back. So I got to move back to Iowa. And I attended online classes through the program, as did pretty much the majority of everyone else. We took a lot of our kind of biology classes. I did biology of elasmobranchs and our invertebrate biology class, as well as, believe it or not, we took our diving class through that as well. Obviously, we weren't getting any of the hands-on diving stuff, but we did the best we could with what was going on in the world. That photo of the computer setup there, that is where I was spending all of my time. So a lot of time spent there. But when I got back, I was kind of just sitting idly by, taking these classes and whatnot, just kind of waiting to see what would happen with the world. But they were obviously pretty short-staffed at Central Campus downtown in Des Moines. They had some lab volunteers that were coming in these quarantine groups, some of the high schoolers. And we got reached out, all of us Iowans that moved back from Oregon coast, to be kind of senior lab managers for these high schoolers. Basically, everybody was kind of blocked into a schedule, and so that there was all the degrees of separation and everything, make sure we weren't infecting each other. But I ended up being a senior lab manager for the marine biology classes for Dr. Berard, who was the marine biology instructor there. And then Seth, one of the other guys, was the senior lab manager for the aquarium science side for Kirk Embry, who was the aquarium science teacher. So we kind of divided and conquered a little bit. Basically, our job was to come in at the end of the day and make sure all of the high schoolers had done everything they should, kind of check up on them. And then we do some of the more advanced stuff, like I would run water quality for the whole place, at least the whole marine biology side, which is what that photo is down there, with the whole fancy pH probe setup. And then I was also kind of in charge of the quarantine, which is that photo with the siphon tube there in the middle. That was actually me acclimating our, we got some young upside down jellies in the bottom right there. That's inside of that bucket that I'm acclimating. So I was kind of in charge of the quarantine space just because it was a little bit more involved with moving fish and some of the inverts around and getting some of the new acquisitions, doing medical treatments and stuff. But that top right photo there was kind of my project for the time I was there. It was my first time doing PVC plumbing. Dr. Berard had me plumb some of the protein skimmers there. I kind of was a little bit self-taught. Kind of just let me throw myself at it, and kind of figured it out on my own. And one of those skimmers is still my plumbing to this day. So that was pretty cool to see every time I go back there. I can't say if it leaked or anything when they finally hooked everything up, because by that time I was gone. But yeah, for that time being, I got to kind of get my animal fix there, and go back to Central and help out for, it goes around like 4.5 months there while COVID was going on. So eventually we got to return to Oregon Coast as kind of a hybrid thing where we were taking a lot of classes online, but then we were kind of able to get special permission as long as we were masked up and everything to go work in the lab and everything. This is kind of when I, at least personally, got to a bit more of some of the more hands-on advanced classes. All these photos here, besides the top right one, are from our life support and system design class. So it's kind of funny looking at these now because these things really aren't that big of a deal now that I've been in the industry a little bit. But at the time, I thought it was the coolest thing ever that I had plumbed a bypass loop and cut a bulkhead into a tank. And in that bottom left corner, that was our final project where we basically just had to plumb a whole system ourselves with all the filtration and everything and actually get it running with a pump. And then kind of there, these two photos on the right side was the exhibit design class. That was my group project there. We designed a little diorama for an exhibit hypothetical, and then we had to do a tank insert. We used cement there to make kind of like this ugly rock that had trash on it. It was supposed to be a kind of like a garbage, kind of how animals acclimate to the garbage that are in the water and everything. And that bottom right there is another one of our exhibits that I kind of had to do a mock-up for that I was in charge of. It was just kind of a kelp forest tank, which looking at it now and after I got my kind of final grade, a kelp forest tank could not be 5 feet tall. Just saying, that was something I kind of overlooked, but it's kind of funny to look back on it now. So these are just some photos from my second year. This is actually when I got involved in our moon jelly system and our moon jelly culturing. So kind of furthering the very limited knowledge that I had from being at Central. That second photo on the top there actually took care of some poison dart frogs as well. That was completely new to me. It's kind of the only terrestrial thing we had when I was out there. So that was kind of a fun new experience. And next to that is actually, that's my dorm room. I was culturing bioluminescent dinoflagellates in my closet that term, which was just kind of a thing I started doing for fun. Top right there, that's Emily, who gave a talk a couple weeks ago. We were system partners on that coral tank. That's the bottom middle photo down there. It was that tank and then a coral trough that was behind us. That's us bagging up some corals and stuff for surplus. So that was kind of my first time surplusing animals. I also had a chance to surplus a decent amount of moon jellies to some facilities as well. So that's kind of where I got my start kind of doing that too. I had no idea I'd be doing it as much as I am today. Bottom left there is just kind of one of our little tide pooling trips we took as a group. And then bottom right, I was also had a assignment to do our live food, which was also me getting my start to something that I actually really absolutely love doing, is growing microalgae. So in that photo there, that's just us growing up some of the liquid algae. Nanochloropsis was that strain. And then like that weird bottle that's kind of on the bottom shelf there in the middle, that was a tiny little brine culture setup. But this is kind of where I got started with a lot of the things I'd be doing professionally. So it's kind of funny to look back and see that. So after I got done there, COVID was still going on. Our graduation requirement at Oregon Coast, the final thing we do is to either get like a job or an internship and do that. And then there's kind of a class that's associated with it. A lot of people weren't having a lot of luck because a lot of aquariums and zoos were doing the opposite of hiring during COVID. There's a lot of furloughs and layoffs happening, and nobody really wanted to hire so much. So I wasn't having a ton of luck finding anything. So I was kind of lucky enough to talk with our program director and do a quote unquote independent study for another term out there after I had finished up all my classes. And I was basically running the quarantine for the building kind of pretty much full time, honestly, more than full time. I think I was in there 7 days a week just because there was nothing else to do during COVID and I enjoyed it. But part of my independent study, I kind of had something a goal that I needed to work towards. I helped try to set up some aquarium system automation, which is kind of down there in the middle there. That's a Neptune Apex system. And then that's me on the iPad messing around with a Coral View system. I didn't quite achieve the goals that I wanted. I wanted that Coral system that I worked on to be like completely automated eventually, like but there was a Wi-Fi blocker on our lab. So the Coral View stuff wasn't really usable unless we had a Ethernet cable. So that didn't really work out the way it was supposed to, but I got pretty familiar with those systems, so I got something out of it. It was kind of funny. There were some openings with kind of students that were affected by COVID and stuff. I got to work on that big photo there. It was actually a system I had already been assigned to, so I got to come back and work on it again. That coral system, bottom right there is a horse conch that I took care of in the quarantine facility, and that top right was in that trough there. That's a bunch of, I think it was warm water invertebrates that we got a shipment of that I took care of, some crabs and snails and sea cucumbers and chocolate chip stars. So it was fun to go back and be able to work on that system again. My lab partner was for that system was Caleb, so I was working with one of my friends on it as well. Then that top right is kind of one of the only other things we had back in the quarantine facility. We had a birdfish back there as well for a bit. Got to do a little bit of gavage tube feeding for that birdfish, and learned how to kind of anesthetize them with MS-22, and that was a whole experience. But in there, I had a cowfish that we got in, just kind of had to quarantine it there. It was a new acquisition. And on top of that was like a clownfish as well that I had up there. But that cowfish, it was kind of fun. I got to spend that term as well target training it, and it got really good at it. Since they were concerned about the system they'd be putting it in, about it competing for food. So I got to just kind of focus on that single cowfish, and I really grew to love them. It was a good time working back there. So eventually I did have to leave the proverbial nest a little bit. That was Oregon Coast. Luckily enough for me, our instructor, Trevor Erdman out there, kind of reached out to me personally because, I was kind of struggling trying to find something about, there's a former alumni, Oregon Coast alumni, Micah Buster, who was at the time the life support manager for the Marine Mammal Center in Sausalito, California. They were offering up an internship, specifically kind of targeting a life support internship, targeting some of the Oregon Coast students. Housing was provided, so that was kind of the biggest thing. And another thing that kind of led me to accept this internship and kind of go along with it and applying everything was I wasn't super comfortable with my life support skills. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to kind of work on that a little bit. And I didn't know it at the time, but the guy I worked under he's kind of a life support savant. He's one of the smartest dudes I ever met. And he was a great instructor. It was awesome working with Micah there. that's me working on getting the impeller off of a Fibrock 1500 pump. There'll be some more photos later, but that bottom right is kind of some of the life support. That was on the far right of that photo, some of the large protein skimmers we were working with. But the Marine Mammal Center was a marine mammal hospital. They had a lot of different types of seals and sea lions that were patients there. And their biggest thing was rehabilitation, getting them back out into the ocean, whatever they're indisposed for. While I was there, we also had a sea otter. So they took on more than just the pinnipeds and stuff like that. So these are just some more of the things I worked on. A lot of these things are things that I have to go through and do checks on. A lot of Fibrock 1500 pumps, RK2 protein skimmers. That bottom middle was the ozone generators that Mike actually had built himself, which was just insane to me. Bottom right is sand filters. Yeah, we're just kind of doing a lot of the general maintenance that life support guys do. I got to get a ton of hands-on experience taking pumps apart, fixing stuff, putting stuff back together. I got to watch how a lot of the processes went for ozone generators, stuff like that. That stuff is still like over my head. Top left there was recommended to me by Micah. It was just kind of this little kit that you could buy that it was just kind of this. It was originally intended for like coding and programming, but you could use it to kind of learn about electricity and how like being an electrician works, because that was also kind of a large part of what we were doing there, wiring all of these components. So I kind of did that on my free time and took notes on electricity and everything by Micah's recommendation with that little kit. It's basically like me wiring stuff up to make like a light turn on that board there, but it was a completely new experience for me doing that as well. Just kind of trying to round out all of my knowledge. This is just me. A lot of these are me taking apart various size pumps. That second from the left photo there, looks like there's kind of a lot of stuff going on. That was us using a laser alignment tool to make sure that the pump that we're working on was completely level, which was kind of one of the coolest, fanciest instruments I'd ever seen. Bottom left is me doing some of that electrical work that I talked about. That was for an ultrasonic depth sensor that we were putting into one of our sumps so that we could digitally tell how much water was in the sump. We could just hop on the computer system called RCK and it would tell us by the feet or inches or just how much water was left there. That was bottom middle there is kind of a similar component. That's a flow meter that I helped install straight into the line there. Bottom right is just me doing some of the solvent welding for that ultrasonic depth sensor. Then top right was kind of stupid, but that was the one single work order that I was assigned to. It was just making a boot rack for the mammal vets. But it was just kind of a funny thing that I just kind of plumbed that like it was regular PVC and set that up for them. I think they were thankful, and I etched my name into it and everything since it was like the one thing I built while I was there. But it was a really good time there. All of the life support dudes were so cool. It was really chill, and I learned just like an ungodly amount of information from all of them there. And living basically kind of in San Francisco in the national park there was insane too. I did so much hiking, and I really enjoyed my time out there. So actually, before I had even gone out to San Francisco and Sausalito, I had applied for a tropical aquarist position at the Maritime Aquarium in Norwalk, Connecticut. They got back to me after I had accepted my internship and had already planned all that out. And they had me in consideration for the tropical job. And then they also asked if I wanted to interview for the Jellies job. I was kind of, at that point, kind of desperate to just kind of find an industry job for after my internship. So I agreed. I had, very minimal Jellies experience. I had an understanding of all of it. And it just kind of sounded at the time like a job. So they ended up offering me that job before I'd even gotten out to San Francisco, and they were gracious enough to wait the whole 3+ months for me to complete my time there at the Mammal Center, my internship, and then move out to Connecticut. So that was very, very gracious of them. And I kind of hit on it later too, but I think I kind of have Oregon Coast and Oregon to credit for their willingness to wait for that. But I got the job as a Jellies aquarist, and I started in October of 2021, kind of a little quick turnaround from San Francisco a little bit. So while there, we had about 22 jelly systems and other various things across 2 different exhibits. There was the Jelly Gallery, and then we had the Marine Culture and Care Lab, which is where all of the jelly culturing happened. And as you can see in that bottom left, those are actually our culturing racks for the jellies that we had there. Completely open to the public, separated by that half wall. That was a pretty cool thing, because usually that stuff's happening behind the scenes. So that was really cool to have all that on display. In my time there, I took care of 19 different species of jellies, not all at once. Some of them came and went. And it just kind of depended on what was going on at the time, what we were able to acquire and everything and get to strobulate. But my team for the jellies was also in charge of caring for the giant Pacific octopuses. We had 2 at all times. There was a display tank in both galleries for the octos. We also took care of that big lionfish tank, which is the bottom middle photo. And then kind of towards my end of my time out there, we had a tank with sea pens. And then we opened up a kind of a cross species jelly slash fish slash invertebrate mangrove tank that had some Caribbean reef fish and invertebrates in it, as well as upside down jellies. And then in my time there, I was able to kind of start up the Nanochloropsis cultures, basically kind of pulling on all of my information that I had learned working on that stuff from Oregon, and the brief little tiny bit I did back in Iowa at Central Campus. So I was actually able to start that up, and I was kind of in charge of all of the algae culturing that was out there. So all of these photos, just full disclaimer, are all taken. These are all jellies that we had taken care of. So at least in my time there, these are all the jelly species that I had taken care of. The asterisk are ones that were cultured in-house. So jellies have a complex life cycle. Basically, kind of very, very broad rundown of it is they kind of start out when they reproduce. They release the gonad or the gametes into the water and everything. That creates planula, these little kind of floating single cell looking weird things that will settle out eventually and attach to the substrate or rocks or whatever they can attach to, and they kind of grow into this little thing called a polyp. Looks like a little anemone. And then eventually those will, whenever the time comes, start stacking baby jellies, which are called a phyra. And they kind of form a little stack like a tree, and then those all pop off, and those are actually all genetic clones of each other, which is kind of neat. And then those phyra eventually grow up into the adult jellies, which is called the medusa stage. So everything with an asterisk on that list are things that we raised all the way through polyp, all the way up to medusa stage. But yeah, there aren't a ton of places. It's kind of coming around now, but when I started, there weren't a ton of places that had as many jelly species as we had there. A lot of facilities are starting up jellies programs now, but the broad range of jellies that I was able to work with when I was out there was kind of insane. And we had so many tanks that we were able to keep them in, so we were able to kind of keep a lot of the different groups as well. A lot of those ones without the asterisks, the comb jellies, sea gooseberries, clapper jellies, those were all kind of collected out in the water, dried off of Connecticut. So that was kind of a cool experience to actually be able to go out and collect jellies. And then things like the blue blubber jellies, nobody knows how to culture those really right now. So everybody kind of buys them from the same source that's over on the other side of the world. So we would get those shipped in regularly. And then a lot of the other ones without asterisks were ones that we got surplus through trading with other facilities. There's kind of this thing that we all have in the jelly world called jelly karma. Basically means like if I surplus these jellies to you, it's kind of like an IOU, whether they do it right then and there's a whole trade that happens, or later on down the line, you can kind of either approach the people, or if they kind of owe you, kind of ask them what they got, and kind of do exchanges that way as well. And then those last three down there, those are ones that were just polyps only while I was there. They never did anything. And then hydroids only, because crystal jellies are a different type of jelly that have a whole different type of life stage. It's life stages or hydrozoans. The black sea polyps never did anything while I was there. And then right before I left, we got spotted lagoon jelly polyps that I believe they still have there to this day. No, we also had that bottom row, second from the right, that crazy kind of stringy looking one, that was a clinging jelly. We actually just kind of had those show up in one of our systems right before I left too. And I hear from my friend who still works there, they have a lot of success kind of accidentally culturing those. So that was a pretty cool thing as well. We just kind of got those by accident. So these are a lot of the photos of the other creatures I cared for, including the live foods. Top left there, those are our brine towers. We had 4 in each gallery, 8 total. And we would grow the brine shrimp up to their Artemia life stage, which is just 48 hours old. And that's what the jellies got fed every day, among a few other things. That was their primary food source though. Yeah, we got lionfish, different anemones that were in the tanks with the octos. That's one of our octos in the top right there. There's the sea pens next to the octo. We've got to kind of take from our temperate, even though it was a tropical thing, that a few tropical tanks, but our temperate section donated because they didn't have any room for them, but that horse conch that's on the bottom row there, and that was probably my favorite non-jelly thing that we had. He had a lot of personality for a horse conch. And that's kind of, it's still when it was a work in progress, but that big long tank there was the mangrove tank that we took. It used to be the Florida Reef Tracks coral restoration tank, but we converted it over to that mangrove tank. And then that bottom right is when I first got our algae samples. I had 2 different strains of Nanochloropsis. I had Nanochloropsis oculata and Nanochloropsis salina. That was when I first got them that first day, so that's why they're kind of in the little Erlenmeyer flasks there. But I grew those up in big kind of brewing carboys, and I was able to, we didn't use them so much ourselves, but I was able to supply like the temperate sections for their like freshwater mussels and stuff like that. And then when I was there, I was also cross-trained to cover the tropical and temperate sections. So I spent a decent amount of time in the temperate section covering for their Aquarist 3, because it was a whole thing where he had to take vacation time that he wasn't taking. So he was a little bit forcibly made to take vacation time. It was a whole funny thing, but I was kind of his replacement along with another guy for a decent bit of time there during the summer. So I got pretty familiar with taking care of the cold water tanks and like the Ray Touch tank while I was there. Luckily, I was able to pull from all the info, and completely forgotten fish and elasmobranch stuff quite yet. So I got some experience in that too. This is just kind of some of the random operations I was involved with. It was kind of a smaller staff there. It's like a small to medium-sized facility. So a lot of working closely with everybody. Just me driving the forklift. Next to that, we were cleaning sand that we had to dump into our new sandbar shark exhibit. We all had to come in after hours to help clean the sand that we put in there. I was part of dive operations there. We kind of only really had 2 tanks that we would dive regularly. It was the shark tank and the harbor seal tank. So a warm water tank and a cold water tank. It was got a nice mix there, but that's me in the shark tank sticking, using a shark stick. Make sure the sharks don't get close to the other diver while he's cleaning. Next to that, on that top row, there is a bunch of us there in the Dynasty Marine semi-truck getting a shipment of blue runners for that shark exhibit. I forget how many we had, but we got a ton. We just kind of lined up there, did a whole line, and moved him into the holding facility there. That individual there next to me with the glasses was actually one of my classmates out in Oregon. So that was kind of funny to reunite with her. She still works out at Maritime. Photo next to that is me giving a medical injection to one of the lionfish. So I also got some little bit of the hands-on medical experience doing that as well. Bottom left there is when we had to move the sandbar sharks out of their quarantine tank and onto exhibit. So I was part of the stretcher team that day, carrying the shark across the way over to the forklift, which our curator then drove and then took to where they would then take them up into the exhibit. Next to that is me on the light table that we had in the jelly culturing lab. That's just me probably counting some jelly ephira. Next to that is me and my coworker, my really good friend Haley. She was also Jellies Aquarist there. That's us cleaning out that mangrove exhibit in between it being a coral tank and a mangrove tank. And then next to that is me in the water assisting with getting one of our sea turtles, is either one of the two green sea turtles or a loggerhead sea turtle, onto a stretcher so that we could lift them out of the tank and do turtle physicals, which was always a time, always getting beat up by the giant turtles. So yeah, that's just a lot of the stuff I got here. We're all pretty involved no matter what, even like the mammal team and like the reptile team. We're all involved in all kinds of stuff. Everybody by the end of my time there was diving for the most part and all helping out with every operation since we were kind of a smaller team. So after a bit of time there, I saw a job posting that I felt like I just couldn't even pass up. It was a job posting for specifically jellies and live food aquarists for a brand new jellies program at a facility that I had visited and I was familiar with. I had visited like back in 2018 when Wonders of Wildlife had first opened. Around the time when it first opened, I did the whole shark diving experience in their cage that they have that guests can do out here. And so I applied, interviewed, not really expecting a whole lot. I don't know why. I wasn't really thinking highly of myself at the time, I guess. But then they got back to me with an offer that was actually a promotion. Micah, my internship instructor, he was the director of life support out there. He worked as an aquarist too at Wonders of Wildlife back in the day. So he actually I think he pulled a little bit from me there and spoke to them. And then my old curator, Barrett at Maritime, had done the AZA inspection for Wonders of Wildlife a couple of years ago, actually. So he's very familiar with everything out there. Yeah, they offered me Aquarius 2 position. My girlfriend and I moved out here. My girlfriend I had met at Maritime. She was a reptiles keeper there. We started dating pretty much like as soon as we got to know each other, and we moved in together and everything. So we were living together out there. So she moved with me out here, and she now also works with our birds, mammals, reptile team out here as well. She takes care of gators and beavers and ducks and all kinds of really cool stuff, some venomous snakes. So it was really nice that she was able to move with me, and she's now in the same workplace as me. But yeah, bottom right there is my current team. There's 4 of us on the Jellies team. Left to right is that's Haley in Aquarist 1, and then Chelsea, she's our lead aquarist, and then Audrey next to me there is another Aquarist 1, and then I'm the Aquarist 2. So out here, we have about 18 systems, including a brand new jelly lab and a brand new live food culturing room. And then it was in that last photo. There'll be a couple more photos later on, as well as the largest jelly tank in North America. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but that was also a massive draw for me because how could I kind of say no to that? So in my time here, at least right now, we have 9 species of jellies, with many more on the way. Kind of hinting at us, we may or may not be getting a lot more species within like this week and next week, and the following weeks after that. We're doing a lot of jelly surplusing and exchanging right now to kind of help the beginnings of this jelly program get up onto its feet a little bit. Then another big focus, another thing that was a massive draw for me, just because I love doing live food so much, is that it was also a live food position. So we're also in charge of the care and culture of live foods, including various microalgae and different plankton species. We have more plans for a lot more of those on the way as well. Bottom left there is our jelly gallery. It doesn't currently really look like that. We've done a lot of moves around and stuff. Middle there is just some of our bay nettles, and on the right there is just one of our kind of sections of our jelly lab with our brand new systems. Everything's very new and shiny. It's very nice. So right now, these are our jelly species. Same thing as the last list. Everything with an asterisk are the ones that we're currently culturing. And yeah, there's a few new species for me, or actually kind of just one, the marble jellies. I'd never worked with those before. That's the bottom middle photo there. And once again, all of these photos are of our jellies that we have out here. That bottom right one was taken by my coworker Haley. She has a real knack for like getting these gorgeous photos of our jellies. I don't know how she does it. It's better at the iPhone photography than I am. But yeah, already we have added so many species to our list just in my time being out here, and we culture and will have the ability to culture such a large percentage of our species in-house, which is kind of a big deal, just being able to be self-reliant, self-sustaining, being able to control when we want to have them pop off and give us baby jellies, and when we kind of just want the polyps to sit and be, which is kind of what we're doing right now with our Malaysian jellies and our brown sea nettle polyps for both of those. We just got those brown sea nettle polyps last week, actually. That was not a new display species, but this is the first time this facility has ever had polyps for them. So that's very exciting to be able to work with that species again. But kind of the big deal out here, and which you'll kind of see, is our South American sea nettles. We have been a little too successful with culturing those. We had them kind of have their own polyps show up in the tanks because we have two different populations that are both male and female. They kind of did it on their own. We collected the polyps. They settled out for us, and then before we knew it, we kind of had some accidental temperature stressing events, which is one way that you can get polyps to start strobulating and creating baby jellies. Before we knew it, we have 9,000 South American sea nettles that we have to put somewhere, which is that top left species there, that really gorgeous striped one. Needless to say, they get absolutely massive. So that is also kind of a concern that we have been having, because they get very big, very fast, and we have 9,000 of them. So a little too successful with that, but we learned from it, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because, like I said, we're surplusing them out to other facilities and getting very crazy stuff in return that I'm very excited for. So this is our live food room. Once again, I mean, this is a lot of the same stuff I've been doing, but basically on steroids. Right now, we're just doing the usual Artemia nauplii, so the 48-hour baby brine shrimp. Yeah, you want to call it that? A little morbid, maybe, but that's what's in the middle photo there. On the right, those cones, that's the brine shrimp cones. Rotifers are in that middle photo there, and those cylinders on the left there, that kind of brown color. It's basically just another type of tiny bitty bitty plankton. It's a lot smaller than brine shrimp, so we use that a lot with feeding our baby jellies who can't quite maybe eat the large brine shrimp yet, and feeding our polyps and specific species of jellies like that. I had a bit of experience taking care of those, but I was not successful at all when I was at Maritime. Just trying to grow them in the usual kind of bucket setup. So seeing us have kind of these larger setups is just kind of crazy. A couple months ago, that far left photo on that top rack there, that brown algae, we started growing isochrysis. So isochrysis and nanochloropsis, it's a brown algae and a green algae respectively. They have kind of amino acids and different nutritional stuff in them that the other one doesn't. So the thought was growing the isochrysis and then feeding that out to our rotifers and our brine shrimp and whatever else, along with the nano, gives them that complete, full, rounded diet so that we can make sure they're being getting proper nutrition, so that our jellies are getting proper nutrition when they eat them. So that was kind of the thought process there. It's kind of a neat setup in that leftmost photo. That is a CO2 canister there, cylinder there. It's basically kind of like growing plants. The algae, we give it fertilizer, we give it quote unquote sunlight with those the bright lights that are behind it there, and then we give it oxygen. And then just like with plants, CO2 will also very much increase the growth rate. So we have that CO2 cylinder there gets injected into those algae carboys there, and we've found that it helps immensely with how quickly our algae grows. That was a whole new concept to me. In hindsight, it's probably pretty obvious, but just kind of a cool thing that we recently set up. And then we take care of mysis shrimp as well. We get those shipped in weekly. We actually don't really use that so much. We kind of take care of those for a lot of the fish sections that we have out here. But we do also have those in our live food room as well. So this is just kind of some of the operations I've been involved with here. Top left there, my coworkers and I climbed into one of our saltwater making slurry basins kind of around when I first started, and had to clean it out because of all the salt buildup. Bottom left there, that was actually just a couple weeks ago. I got to hookah dive our one large display tank and kind of clean it out because it had been a long time since it had that happen. We had our Valentine's Day decoration up on it, so that's why I took the corny picture. But that was a really cool experience. I've never been crammed into a tank that small. Next to that is just kind of some of the medical procedures. We've actually it's a little bit of a novel thing doing medical procedures and stuff on jellies, but we've actually had some good results from some of our jellies. A lot of our South American population that we got initially kind of got this weird wasting disease. We were able to treat it with oxytetracycline, and we found like giving them either a bath or just putting it straight into the system for an extended period helped them recover from the kind of weird mystery deterioration they had going on. So that was kind of a thing that I think we're kind of in the process of potential raw talks and papers on that, since it was kind of a novel thing. Next to that, I'm doing a lot of diving out here. There's significantly more tanks to dive here than my previous job. So it definitely helps keep a variety going. We have a lot of unique tanks and different types of animals in them and everything that we dive. There's a lot of diving that happens out here. We have a whole dive team. So that was me during my checkout dive. That's why I was with our dive safety officer there working on some of my skills and stuff. Top right there is just like those are our Halloween decorations that we had. It's kind of a funny thing I threw in there. Then these other three photos here are actually my team and I crawling into our large tank that I mentioned earlier while it was dry to kind of clean it out because it had been sitting dry for a little bit. It was a little dusty. We just wanted to make sure it was spotless before we filled it with water. So that was really, really interesting climbing in there with the ladder in that cramped space and kind of cleaning everything out with them, but it was pretty fun. So the big kind of elephant in the room is our large tank. So like I said, this is going to be the biggest jelly system in North America, and it's going to be up there kind of with the entire world. Definitely not close to being the biggest because there's a lot of tanks that are exactly the same as this over in Asia. And then there's one of these up in Canada as well at the Toronto Aquarium. It's actually the quote unquote sister tank to ours. But ours is slightly bigger than theirs and it's a little bit differently set up. But it is just the tank itself is about 5,000 gallons. The whole system is like just under 6,500 gallons or something like that. It's changed a little bit with all the different components. It is still very much a work in progress. But the jellies that'll be going in there are all of those, oh no, that's a typo right there. Don't look at that. I spelled their scientific name wrong. The Crassora plocamia, which are the South American sea nettles. We're going to put 100 to 120 in there. But the whole system, it has two sumps that are connected. The one of the sumps, or they can be isolated from each other for sand filter backwashes. So whenever you do like I guess if there is a sand filter on a jelly system, which isn't super common, but anytime you do that or like a water change, you can't really do it the traditional way with a jelly tank because the jellies have to have constant flow. So you kind of have to take the water out while you're still adding the water back in kind of at the same time. So it's a little unique in that regard. But the sump is set up for this system in a unique way where we can isolate it so that it's just running on one half of the sump. And then the backwash is going on the left side, just completely isolated, and it's just on a loop connected to the sump to the filter. So that's kind of a cool thing that our life support guys set up, this whole plan. It's got a crazy amount of filter socks, it has 12 on them. And then in different areas of the tank itself, there's 12 spray bars, which is kind of an insane amount. It even has some on the bottom, which kind of through a lot of testing we might not need, but it's nice to have those. The sand filter, like I mentioned, we got a very large RK2 protein skimmer down there. And probably the biggest 150 watt UV sterilizer I've ever seen in my life is on there as well. So the filtration in the tank, it's pretty legit. It's kind of insane. This is just the window as well. Back of house, this tank is actually way bigger than the window. Those are actually mirrors like you can see there on the side. It's kind of so that you can't see the sides of the tank. And it kind of gives that whole like infinite look to it as well. But up in that other smaller photo, that's my coworker there, just kind of for size comparison, just to get an idea of how big it is, kind of using Audrey there. But like I said, the tank on the other side of that wall there is just, it's significantly bigger than just this window. It's kind of the most insane thing I've ever seen. But this is all still very much a work in progress. It has been for a few years now. We've had a chance to kind of, we had jellies in there. They're not in there as of current, but we put in, I think it was like 117 of the South American sea nettles in there, just to kind of test and see how it would go. And then actually this Wednesday, Audrey and I will be diving that tank for the first time just to kind of clean it up a little bit, since those jellies were in there and they kind of made the usual jelly mess. But this will be our first time diving the tank right now that it's empty. We're just going to be doing some maintenance on it from the inside. So that is still kind of all a work in progress, and that's kind of as much as I can share right now. It's all it itself is all public knowledge. Our associate curator has given a raw talk on it and everything, and a lot of people know that we're working on it right now. But yeah, that's kind of the current state of all that. So basically, in conclusion, this is just kind of a timeline of everything, just to kind of show how interconnected all this was. So started volunteering at the zoo. Mom told me about the Central program, and while I was at Central, I was made aware of Oregon Coast Community College and Wonders of Wildlife, where I currently work. Then the tours that I took at College of the Florida Keys with Central, and then the other college visit that I took led me to Florida. And then when I left Florida, it was actually my Central teachers that kind of reminded me, once they caught wind that I wasn't there anymore, they reminded me that the Aquarium Science program in Oregon was a thing and that some of my friends were out there. So went there. And while I was in Oregon, we had this thing called the National Visiting Committee, where a lot of kind of the big names in the aquarium industry take time out of their lives to come visit us, talk to us, and just kind of do kind of like a little bit of pseudo networking, see what projects we're working on. And then they actually stage mock interviews for us, give us feedback on that, give us feedback on our projects. And it's just kind of like this whole kind of like networking meet and greet kind of thing. But while I was there, I met my internship supervisor through our COVID NVC, the digital one, Micah. I had met him through Zoom at least, but then I also met Barrett, who was my future boss at the Maritime Aquarium. I talked to him for a while. Like I said, got to network with big names, advanced my education significantly while I was in Oregon, and that's where I learned my first kind of in-depth jelly stuff and surpluses. Like I said, Trevor, my instructor, hooked me up with that internship pretty much with Micah, which led me to California. and then accepted that position before California. And then they waited for me, like I said, which led me to Connecticut. It's where I became a jelly person pretty much, and that was my first quote unquote real career job. And then the opportunity for Wonders of Wildlife and offering me the promotion led me to Missouri. Now I'm assisting with the startup of a brand new jelly program at a brand new jelly lab and facility. And then I had the opportunity to work with, like I said, just giant up and coming jelly exhibit. But yeah, there's a lot of meeting future people that I would then work with that happened in Oregon. But just kind of going off of that, everything that kind of led back to Oregon specifically. The program in Iowa was kind of unofficially partnered with and promoted promoted Oregon Coast all the time. They like to feed the students out to Oregon Coast kind of. Oregon Coast, like I said, instructor hooked me up. And then my Micah was also an alumni, so that helped too from Oregon Coast. Met my future boss during NVC, like I said. Several other alumni were employed in Connecticut as well. One of them was one of my classmates from my year. And then my education and background actually is kind of what they credited my hiring and the fact that they waited the 3 months for me because they kind of knew that about my experience and everything and what they're getting into since they're a big hirer of Oregon Coast alumni. And then just stuff with Missouri, it kind of connects to California and Connecticut with the stuff I already talked about. My supervisor, who was the other alumni, working at Wonders of Wildlife back in the day. He was here for like 5 years. And then, like I said, Barrett did the AZA inspection for the facility. So he knew the guys out here. He reached out for both my girlfriend and I and talked to them a little bit too. So that was also a big help. But this just kind of shows how much of everything I've done just kind of leads back to Oregon and my time spent there. Had I not been there, I think a lot of the networking and people that I know have kind of carried me a lot, and just kind of the recommendations and them talking to future employees for me and stuff have definitely carried me a lot through my career so far, and it's been just an absolute massive help. Oregon still probably to this day out of all these places my favorite place I've ever lived. I miss it all the time, but I had kind of expended all my direct resources while I was out there, so that's kind of why I moved on. But would never be opposed to moving back there. I absolutely loved it. Um, yeah, that's it. Thanks. That's just a random. I ran out of photos of everything, so you get a photo of me. That's the one from like 2018 when I first visited Wonders of Wildlife as a high schooler back in the day and did the shark dive, not knowing that I'd end up working there years later. So yeah, that's all though.
Nice. Thank you. Yay. So, we definitely have time for questions now. And actually, Connor, if you want to open the chat, we're having
Yeah.
a AQS reunion right now,
Oh, are
actually.
we? Very cool.
Yeah.
Always love those.
Um, yeah, so I don't know if you want to read through
Yeah,
that.
I'll take a second to read this.
Yeah, also, I have the ability to just give people the opportunity to talk. So, Aaron,
Okay.
not to like put you on the spot or anything, but you do have permitted talking if you would like. And also Emily, because she's here and I'm making her.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. Love that for Emily. Yeah,
Hi
I'm just.
there.
Hey.
I just sent a private message to Connor. I wanted to pick his brain. My goal is to become a jelly expert. And yeah, but yeah, I was in the AQS program in 2018, 2019.
Sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, did my internship at Alaska Sea Life Center, and I was a student aquarist at Hatfield Marine Science Center, which
Nice.
for all of you is the science center right next to Oregon Coast Aquarium.
Yes, I lived in their dorms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know you lived in their dorm.
Yes. Yeah. That was
But
a good time.
But yeah, no, I'm super proud of you. You've gotten a lot more head than I have since I started school.
Oh, well, hey, I appreciate it. I don't know. You went to Alaska. That's legit.
Yeah, you're already an Aquarist too.
Yeah, I'm still, I tell them all the time, I don't know. I obviously I can't argue against it because I don't want to, but I don't know why they gave me that, but I just said like, oh, okay, thanks.
Also, I'm so jealous. There's a cow. You got to take care of a cowfish
Oh yeah,
at
that was
AQS.
massive highlight for me for sure. That was a good time. That was like between that and the horn shark, those are like my two favorite things.
My favorite systems were the swell shark, Victoria,
Yes, yes.
and the grouper, puffer, lionfish. Yeah.
That swell shark was my training project. I tried to train her with Grace to come up to a platform. Obviously, she kind of just did whatever she wanted, but I got to work with that swell shark a little bit. She was like my third favorite there for sure. She was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Grace was one of my mentors as well as
Yeah,
Rose and Claire.
nice, nice. I still talk to Trevor and Grace semi regularly. Yeah, they were awesome. I wouldn't have known any of the live food things at all had I not done the live food culturing stuff with Grace. So big credit to her.
Anyway, yeah, I would love your email to talk to you more
Oh, absolutely.
if that would be okay.
Yeah, I'll just send it here. Of
Thank you so much.
course. Let's see if I can remember it.
Yeah, we love the AQS alum
Oh, absolutely.
opportunity.
And
It's
I'm
great.
a little involved. I love answering questions though. I'm sure whoever's on the list here probably knows I answer stuff on there every now and then. But yeah, no, I love answering questions and like learning what other people are doing and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely. I'll
It's
get
extra
me
fun
on
for me because I'll get it and I can still pretend like I'm in the Aquarist world when I'm
That's all
definitely
right.
not anymore at all. So I
All
love it.
right.
Awesome. Well, to anyone else that has questions, and by anyone else, I mean Richard or my mom.
Like I said, it's going to be a whole bunch of my family members watching the YouTube recording, so it's probably best that they're not here because they'll
It's
make what
okay.
they
We'll have
say.
comments on so they can say anything they want down there.
I told all of them just watch the recording. It's all right. YouTube's okay. I'll just slip them all the link and they can watch.
It'll be great. We can, maybe I will make Larry post it on the AQS Facebook
You
page.
should send it his way.
I will. I will
If you truly
absolutely.
feel like it, it'd be a little weird if I did it and I'm just like, hey,
Hey, Larry,
but
I did this. You can post it for
if you
me.
truly feel inclined, you totally can.
No, I'll do it so it's less weird and I can just demand.
Cool. Sounds good.
Cool. Sounds great.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much, Connor. This was
No,
fun.
thank you. I was happy to do it. It was kind of nice to feed into my narcissism a little bit and talk about myself. So
It
always
was fun
love
to learn.
it.
Also,
Absolutely.
I think it's so important to be able to like explore the map of just different people who are pushing you in a lot of different ways of like
Oh,
getting
for
to where you
sure.
need to go. So it's like, hey, this really cool place exists in Iowa.
Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of always the
we need
funniest
more of
thing is,
those.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I know those kids there in Iowa right now, they have it so much better than I did. Um, they're doing so much cool stuff. They have like multiple species of octopuses now. And they're like culturing cuttlefish out the wazoo. It's insane. So, and like Dr. Berard's part of the UN now. I just saw this last week, and some of the students got accepted to this United Nations student thing. So they're doing a lot of really legit stuff there, and I'm very jealous of them.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Sweet. Oh.
Well, now my cats are yelling. Perfect.
It's okay. Mine are also hungry. If you didn't see the chat, Erin said thank you and great job. Love seeing the AQS Aquarium updates and back of house of other facilities.
Of course, yeah, and then also thank you, Richard. That means a lot, actually. I try. That's all I can do.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Good to
Have a
see
great
you.
night. Bye.
Bye.